The hot lights of the Capitol hearing room beat down like judgment from a god who had grown tired of pretense. Cameras clicked, murmurs stirred. Somewhere in the crowd, a pen scratched furiously across a notepad. But at the center of it all, center of the heat, center of the gaze, sat Jasmine Crockett. Her face calm, her eyes sharp, but inside her chest, a storm was brewing. Florida Senator Rick Scott had just leaned into his microphone, voice cool, measured, with that politician's smirk that always seemed to beg the world to applaud him for keeping a tie straight. "With all due respect, Congresswoman Crockett," he began, which in Washington was just code for no respect at all. "Maybe if you spent more time understanding basic economics and less time on your hair, you'd know what inflation actually is." Gasps rippled through the room like a tremor. The air changed. Even the cameras seemed to inch forward, hungry. Crockett's nostrils flared for a fraction of a second enough. She knew how to hold fire in her throat and decide when to let it burn. The silence stretched so thin you could hear the creak of someone shifting in a leather seat. Then she spoke. "Well," she said, leaning in, her voice honey, laced steel, "thank you for your concern, Senator. I'll be sure to include hair tips in my next policy paper. But until then, I'll keep focusing on feeding families and not feeding fragile egos." And just like that, the room snapped alive. Laughter broke through the tension like thunder cracking through dry air. Phones lit up, texts shot off, and somewhere in the mess of tweets and clips flying across the internet, a phrase caught hold: feeding families, not fragile egos. Jasmine Crockett had clapped back, and the internet crowned her queen by sundown. But the story didn't start in that room, and it sure didn't end there. Jasmine wasn't new to confrontation, born in scent. Louis, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and still made it to parent-teacher conferences with pride in her eyes and exhaustion in her bones, Jasmine had learned early that silence was luxury only privilege could afford. Her mother, Denise, used to say, "If they're gonna call you angry, you might as well speak the truth while you're at it." Law school had been brutal, not because of the classes, Jasmine devoured those, but because of the stares, the constant questions about whether she was diversity or qualified. She had to fight to be seen, even when she was right in front of them. By the time she reached Congress, she had a mission like fire in her blood, to be the voice for those the system always told to wait their turn. She came in loud, proud, unapologetically black, unapologetically brilliant, and to men like Rick Scott, that was exactly the problem. Rick, for his part, had built his career on control, of optics, of message, of narrative. A former CEO turned governor, turned senator, he moved through politics like a man who thought the world owed him everything and was just late delivering. He didn't fear Crockett because she was wrong. He feared her because she was effective. The insult hadn't been off the cuff. It was planned. His aides had floated the idea for weeks. Rattle her, get a clip, play it on conservative media. What he hadn't calculated was the weight of the moment, because that hearing wasn't just about inflation. It was about whose voices got to define America's priorities and whose were still being mocked from sidelines. As Jasmine's moment spread online, something bigger stirred. Her inbox flooded, not just with praise, but with stories. A woman in Detroit who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford rent. A high school girl in Georgia inspired to run for student council. A retired teacher in Tulsa who said, "I've never seen someone look like me speak like that in Congress." But not all attention was kind. That night, as Jasmine sat alone in her apartment, phone buzzing like a live wire, her old fears came creeping. What if she had gone too far? What if she'd just become a meme, not a leader? In her kitchen, the kettle whistled. She poured the tea, hands trembling slightly. Her mother's voice came back to her. they'll never stop coming for you, baby. The trick is to never stop standing. The next morning, she returned to Capitol Hill more focused than ever. She called her staff in early. "We're not letting this be a one-line headline," she said. "We're going to use this to talk about real people. Let's take this fire and make light with it." That week, she introduced the Essential Family Support Act, aimed at increasing subsidies for childcare, expanding EBT benefits, and offering emergency rent stabilization grants. The media started calling it the Clapback bill. Meanwhile, Rick Scott doubled down. He went on morning talk shows, called her unprofessional, divisive, and uninformed. He waved economic charts and quoted Reagan, but the numbers didn't lie. The bill sparked conversation across the aisle because the need was real and Jasmine's passion was magnetic. One subplot began with a high school senior named Andre in Houston who saw the viral moment and decided to write his college essay about it. Raised in a neighborhood where kids were taught to survive more than to dream, Andre saw Jasmine as proof that visibility mattered. He posted his essay online. It went viral too. Jasmine saw it. She invited him to Washington. He walked the halls of Congress with eyes wide, whispering, "I didn't know people like us could be here." Another subplot unfolded quietly within the walls of Jasmine's own team. Her communications director, Ella, a seasoned strategist in her early 40s, had been battling anxiety for years, hiding it behind spreadsheets and press releases. After the viral moment, and watching Jasmine weather the wave of attention with such vulnerability and strength, Ella broke down one night in her office. Jasmine found her, held her hand. "We don't have to be unbreakable," she said softly. "We just have to show up." The pressure grew. As the bill gained momentum, so did opposition. Lobbyists poured in money to stall it. Commentators twisted Jasmine's words. In the thick of it, one night, she found herself standing outside the Lincoln Memorial alone, moonlight washing the stone in silver. She thought of her grandfather who had marched in Selma, thought of the little girl she used to be, speaking into hairbrushes and microphones, pretending she was changing the world. She let herself cry, not out of weakness, but because this mattered. The climax came during the vote on the House floor. It was expected to fail. Everyone said so, but Jasmine stood again. No microphone this time, just her voice, ringing out across the chamber. "I'm not here because I want to be famous. I'm here because kids are hungry and mamas are tired, because people are begging for help and all we're giving them is headlines. I didn't come to clap back. I came to stand up, and something shifted. The vote passed by 3 votes, gasps again, cheers, tears, and for a moment it felt like maybe, just maybe, things could bend toward justice. Resolution wasn't perfect. The Senate would gut parts of the bill. Rick Scott would still go on TV and play victim, but families got help. Andre got a full ride to Howard. Ella started a mental health fund for staffers, and Jasmine, she kept going. The lesson was clear. Strength doesn't come from silence. It comes from speaking even when your voice shakes. It comes from rising, even when they try to drag you down, and it comes from knowing that a clapback can spark a conversation, but only commitment creates change. So next time someone tries to mock your presence, remember Jasmine Crockett. She didn't just defend herself. She redefined the fight.